I pronounced your name correctly too, right? Kempf?
Kempf.
Kempf.
Yeah. There
Okay,
you go.
good. Okay, I said it. I said it perfect.
All my
Therese Kempf.
names, Therese, Katerina, Kempf, no one can pronounce any of them. I literally called an insurance company the other day and they're like, "What's your name?" And I was like, Therese, and I spelled it for her. And she was like, "Oh, Therese." Nope.
Yeah.
I literally just told you what it was. And like, you just can't pronounce it.
I guess I'm just gonna start with the big question
Yes, the big
that you already,
question.
because you said I have a lot of big questions.
Yeah, that's okay. We start big and we go small.
Little, very, very complex.
Yes.
Because this is gonna be a complex, but
Yep.
I love the way you talk. You're very,
Thank you.
yeah, and you have a
Nice
way of,
compliment.
I mean, because it's the truth. You have a lovely way of distilling very complex things into simple stuff,
Hmm.
and I appreciate you for that. Because
Pressure's on.
I'm not. Hey, I'm a decently smart guy, but takes me a little bit to like catch up.
You're very
So
smart.
one of the big questions. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. One, one of the big questions, because as I said in my intro, you are a New York State licensed therapist,
Hmm.
and you're a
LCSW.
LCSW, which
Yes.
stands for.
Licensed clinical social worker.
There we go. So yeah, like you are. Because with podcasts, the question is, why is this person here? And I'm like, oh, she knows what you're talking about, and I made sure to put in that you are a psychotherapist and you help clients with sexual assault. You help clients with
Trauma.
trauma,
Mm-hmm.
epigenetic.
Epigenetic, like the gamut of trauma. So we have the interpersonal violence trauma, childhood abuse, sexual abuse, physical violence, domestic violence, and then like racial trauma, which is also epigenetics, right? And then intergenerational trauma. So to me, that's the whole bucket of trauma, right? As well as couples therapy, which
Got
also has a lot of trauma.
Okay,
Like,
I didn't put that in, so I'm glad you put that in.
yes,
And just real quick, epigenetic. What does that
epigenetics.
necessarily mean?
To kind of explain it in a more digestible way, because it's a little bit of a complex topic. Essentially, it's like how our genes turn off and on based on our environment. So, because racial trauma and racial discrimination is a huge stressor to the body, right? Like certain genes are turned off and on for Black folks specifically. And then that sometimes gets passed down through the lineage.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Like, for example.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about like, why is it that like Black folks have, during COVID, like the life expectancy of Black folks went down, but Black men went down by 3 years, 70, to 70. I think it was 70. So you think about the trifecta that happens in the Black community: high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, heart disease. Some of that can be, lifestyle, but a lot of that also can be about the epigenetic impact of chronic stress and chronic trauma that's passed down through the lineage, because it's actually never stopped. It just looks different.
Got you. Wow. So I mean, and that's like a kind of perfect segue into that big question, which is, looking at what happened with COVID and the
Hmm.
pandemic, and not saying that the pandemic is over by any stretch,
Yeah.
but the lockdown and things like that. And given your role, how do you see the state of like Black American mental health
Yeah. So
today?
before I kind of get into the progress that I'm seeing since I've been in the field for 12 years,
Great.
I want to just kind of set the scene in the sense of like, you can't talk about mental health without talking about the systems that impact mental health. Like, mental health to me is deeply political because it's absolutely impacted by the different systems that we have, right? So, structural racism, institutional racism, specifically for Black folks, health inequality, access to healthcare, housing inequality, wealth inequality, economic inequality, like all these things directly impact mental health. And those things are not, they're not really getting better. You know, I mean, where we are right now in this country politically is just, that's a whole other podcast, right? But so there's that, right? Because people don't just have anxiety and depression in a silo. It's oftentimes related to what's going on and chronic stress. So we have the kind of bigger systemic issues that lead to mental health issues that are not new. They've been here for a while. And then you have the epidemic of trauma that we have in this country. The leading cause of death for Black pregnant women is murder. I know, by intimate partner violence. So that's still, and that's not just for, I mean, that's an epidemic in this country, right? But Black pregnant women are at a high risk for that, as well as other maternal issues, you know, because how they, you know, how they are treated in the healthcare system. I mean, that's a whole other thing, right? So those issues really kind of set the scene as to why we do have an epidemic of anxiety and depression and trauma, which leads to PTSD. Those things aren't new. But what I would say is different now is that people are actually talking about this. People are seeking out therapy. People are interested in putting language to what they're experiencing, because I think historically in the Black community, you know, there has been a lot of shunning of talking about mental health. Like, that person's crazy. Uncle Joe is just a pervert. Like, that didn't happen to you, you know? And the secrecy of trauma that gets passed down through the lineage, you know, because we're just in survival mode, that is shifting. Where I feel like, especially the younger generation, the millennials and the Gen Zs, I feel like they're at a place where they're like, no, I want to actually break this generational trauma. I actually want to talk about what's going on for me, and I want to heal. And I think I have probably seen the most interest in Black men, specifically with wanting to be a part of like healing communities, healing circles. And I feel like places like Heal House have been a big part of it. I also feel like we talk about mental health more in media. I mean, also suicide is much higher amongst men than women. And then that's been like that for a while, right? And I think that there are people, you know, in the Black community that are specifically like, we need to work on this. We need to talk about this. And I don't want to suffer like this, and I want to heal. So that's the biggest thing I've noticed.
So, okay, so there are two things that that kind of really stuck out to me. One, the biggest factor for death in Black pregnant women
Mm-hmm.
is like partner violence.
Yes.
Like and I know this is a really but so this is when you can like see that they're or does it go into that
Well,
kind
it's
of
pregnancy
detail?
and like the beginning of like postpartum. So, but domestic violence increases exponentially when a woman is pregnant. That's usually when, if someone wasn't violent before, that's usually when it starts, and it gets worse.
And I'm still just being shocked right now, but I'm trying to. Is there a reason, or has there
Mhm.
been studies as to why that
Definitely.
is?
I mean, if you think about domestic violence, which is really rooted in power and control, you know, when a woman is pregnant, that's when a lot of the power and control tactics really start. And then when a woman gives birth, I mean, there's a lot of different theories about this. One, like the attention is going towards the baby and not the partner. But usually I have seen that control tactics really increase during pregnancy, is like, I'm going to control you. And again, this is also related to gun violence that we have in this country and the access to firearms. I mean, most of the murder that's happening to pregnant women is through firearms, you know? So I mean, it's shocking, right? And also, this is not new. This has been going on. And I feel like this is part of like just how I feel about how we talk about mental health, is that people don't want to understand and see the reality of this, but it is very common. And not just because I work in trauma, right? I mean, it's like people sometimes are shocked, like, but it's actually not that uncommon.
And I guess also to be
Hmm.
because of the laws that New York State is this something that is this a national
This is
kind of set?
national.
Okay. Um, But have you seen? Because I know New York has some pretty stringent gun
Hmm.
laws, but the violence is still
Yeah.
there.
I mean,
Like,
the statistic is not just New York City or New
right,
York. I mean, definitely like New York has certain gun laws. Also, like, as a mandated reporter, like if we know about someone with a firearm, there's like different like metrics and things that are in place for that. But I mean, this gun epidemic is nationwide, right?
mm,
And it's, I mean, as we know also, like the number one cause of death for children is gun violence
mm-hmm.
now,
Well,
which is just awful. I mean, it was COVID and now it's like it's gun violence,
right.
right? So this is just, again, this is why mental health is so political
Hmm.
because, I mean, the amount of people that have been traumatized by gun violence is really staggering.
Right. So I mean, that was the first thing that literally
Yeah.
just jumped out to me. But then the second part was when you talked about black men and
Mm-hmm.
that they have a higher suicide rate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I mean, I know everyone talks about this, but I think for good reason. When Twitch, he was
Yeah.
the
Mm-hmm.
dancer with Ellen and other, and I just kept seeing this, repeated mantra. And maybe this is what you're talking about with how the conversation
Mm-hmm.
with Black American mental health has shifted,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't a great conversation because people kept saying, "Oh, he looks so happy. He
Yeah.
had everything." What are some of the, especially specific with that, with when it comes to black men, like the pitfalls or some of
Mm-hmm.
the things you see that that could lead to those suicidal tendencies, and
Mm-hmm.
what are some ways that maybe we could curb that, maybe as a community,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that those kind of conversations are a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
elevated.
Right. I mean, that's a good question. I think that ideally we start to intervene before someone is getting to that point, before someone is having suicidal ideation, before someone is actually having a plan to do that, right? And in the trauma field, we work with suicidal ideation a lot because oftentimes it's a result of, we call it extreme coping. So essentially, if someone is having intolerable feelings, if someone is having flashbacks, if someone feels like they can't get out of their situation, we understand the functionality of suicidal ideation, but that's different than we help people build a relationship, but the need to just end it, the need to just end the pain, right? That is that's different than someone being like, I have this plan, I'm going to go on this bridge at this time, whatever. I think the problem is the fact that like men in general in this country and black men specifically, like one, they're not like, it is not, I mean, Harvey, it's shunned upon, right? To talk about, I am sad, I am depressed. I think that vulnerability has been seen as a weakness. I think that's changing, but I think that that has been a really common sentiment. I think that there are certain emotions that um, women tend to feel more comfortable expressing, and that is also like positively reinforced. Whereas I feel like with men, that's not necessarily the case. And then also, I don't think that, the majority of people who are going and seeking out mental health services are not men, you know? So to be able to express your feelings and process them and make sense of them, like you can't do that in silence, in a silo, in isolation. And I can't tell you how many men that I know that have been sexually abused, right? And just have never told anyone and have been silently suffering, right? Or have like really severe PTSD or depression and they just are high functioning, right? And no one asks them and they seem fine. And no one's like, how are you actually doing? Um, you know what I mean? So part of the mitigation of that is actually seeking out mental health services early.
Right.
Hmm.
Where are some places slash resources that people can reach out to,
Yeah.
and again, I'm speaking specifically for Black Americans, and
Yeah.
I guess for New York, but also nationwide,
Yeah.
if there are bigger spaces. What are some places you can recommend people to at least start out, and then
Yeah.
go from there?
There's Therapy for Black Girls. Which is a website that has like a whole roster of therapists.
So
Therapy
it'd be
ther-
www dot
Therapy
therapy.
for Black Girls. Yeah.
Got it.
Therapy for Black Men. I know Taraji.
P. Henson.
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
Yes. She has a foundation that's working on mental health. I don't know a ton about it, but I know she's doing a lot of stuff. There's also a website called Black Mental Health Matters. Also, the Loveland Foundation. They're great because they actually offer, like, I've had a couple clients go through them where you can get, like, they can pay for 4 to 8 weeks of your therapy, which is just, I know, it's really, really awesome. So I had a
Love
couple
that.
clients that did that. So I feel like a lot of things are kind of like popping up. And I know that in LA, there's, I don't know offhand, but I know that I just feel like there's healing communities happening all over. You just have to kind of research where you are. But that's definitely a shift that I've noticed in the past 5 years, even pre-COVID, where people are really wanting to talk about this stuff in community.
Gotcha. And speaking, because there was definitely pre-COVID, but I definitely want to focus on COVID and the pandemic because I think I mean, there's definitely been a real movement by the government and whatever you want to call it to kind of sweep it under the rug.
It's crazy.
Yeah, 1000%. And as a New York State licensed therapist, there must have definitely been a before and after, and probably maybe during like lockdown and
Mm-hmm.
everything like that. So, you know, if you could just walk us through how was what changes or what did you see when it came to your clients and just the
Mm-hmm.
state of mental health in New
Yeah.
York City, which is where you
Yeah.
reside. What were the changes and what did you see? I mean, I'm sure it got worse, but
Mm-hmm.
during the COVID, like what was
Mm-hmm.
the story like? Just
Yeah.
walk us through that.
Big question.
Yeah,
I love the big
I
questions.
told you I'm a big question guy. That's what I do.
All right. So maybe like I'll talk about my personal experience with COVID, but just to your point about like the shifts in the mental health landscape during COVID. So COVID happened right alongside the racial uprising, right? So 2020, we get hit by COVID, and then we have the racial uprising and protests all around the country and a lot in New York.
Was it around George? Yeah, George Floyd and yep.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? So it was an interesting time because people are dying from COVID, but that summer, people were protesting. We were out on the streets. So I felt like there was a lot of solidarity amongst folks of color, amongst Black folks in New York City. I think that kind of that sense of purpose of we're fighting for this, where this is getting recognition, people are acknowledging the impact of racism and police brutality. I think that was really empowering to an extent for folks. And then also corporations started to really pay attention to this and the DEI thing. Okay, now they forgot about it. They paid attention for a minute. Now we're back. Now we're back to what it was, like where they just got rid of it. And
Right.
then,
Aunt Jemima
um,
became the paper milling company or some shit like that. They're like,
hmm
okay, thank
yeah.
you. Anyway.
So it was an interesting time. I mean, my practice was definitely kind of exploded around that time when we started working from home during COVID, right? Um, and then, I mean, coinciding with a couple different things, but I think the interesting thing about COVID is that COVID definitely hit the Black community disproportionately for a lot and for a lot of reasons, right? The comorbidities that exist within the Black community, like the kind of trifecta that we talked about earlier. Access to healthcare is a big thing, which is like I just hate that the fact that like so many things are based on money in this country. Everything is capitalistic at this point, and it's like everyone should have access to healthcare, but that's a whole other thing. Access to testing, like density, the epigenetic aspects. So like Black folks that got COVID, just statistically speaking, are more at risk for getting severe COVID. So that's something that is part of it, right? So.
All right. Or like or they also call it like long COVID, right? Where it
Hmm.
just you have
Yeah.
perpetual cough. Yeah,
Right. But
got
the
you.
people but the thing is, just statistically speaking, the risk factor if you got COVID,
Mm.
if you're Black, is much like, how do I say this? Like the severity of it. And this was again, like in 2020, 2021. It was more of a risk factor just because you're Black, and all the other things that we talked about that impact health and health outcomes.
But I guess maybe with your clients or
Mm-hmm.
the people that you were talking to, what were some of the because there was definitely a lot of isolation. There was
Mm-hmm.
a lot of death just in
Mm-hmm.
general, especially New York. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when I was in Queens, I just heard sirens every day, and
Mm-hmm.
there was a point where we were like clapping for doctors walking out because it was just a really crazy time. So,
Yeah.
uh, I mean, just want to hear about like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you talking about your personal experience, but like,
Yeah.
how did you see people's mental states during or like the fluctuations during that time?
To be honest, I feel like people's experience was so varied. It's really hard to make a generalization, right? Like, I feel like the clients that I was seeing before COVID, I was still seeing during COVID. The new clients I got a lot of new couples during COVID because people just are home and they're like, I can't deal with you. So that was interesting, right? Definitely like the isolation, but I also know folks not in New York that actually dealt with the isolation much worse. I do think that there was some kind of camaraderie in New York. Like, so the day that they did the lockdown in New York, I actually had a friend in town from South Africa, shout out Uno, who was staying with me. And we were hearing about COVID. And I remember being like, yo, you got to go back to Cape Town. They're going to shut the border. Like, you're going to, and he was like, yeah, yeah. And we were at a restaurant that night. And I remember the police came in and they said, everything is shutting down. And that was the
Wow.
beginning of that was like mid-March, right?
Right.
2020. And then that was the beginning of a long period of like shutdown and whatnot. So I feel it's hard. In some ways, I felt like there was a lot of camaraderie, and then I think we went through ebbs and flows. Like I feel like in New York, we had the lockdown and then the summer happened and then we're all out on the street, right? Like protesting. And then we had another wave of COVID where there was another shutdown. So I actually think that people are still not recovered from COVID. I still
Mm.
feel like people are living in isolation
All
more
right,
than
and
they
you're not
were.
just mean like actual COVID, but you mean like
Yes,
the
I
situations
don't
and
feel
things
like
around
New
it, right?
York is back to normal, whatever that means, and I don't feel like people are necessarily feeling like they were pre-COVID. I think that people are tired. I think people are tired of looking at screens. I think there's just a lot.
Facts.
There's a lot to it. And I think that, yeah, I mean, and also people have lost people, or maybe they have long COVID or have someone who has long COVID. So there's just a lot. There's a lot to it. And I feel like we haven't done like a moratorium on what was that and where are we now?
And I
You
think
know?
and I think that's basically like and really what the biggest thing from this is like it's a systemic and institutional failure where
Mm-hmm.
governments the government and and New York City hasn't stepped up in that way. But and something very heartening and
Mm-hmm.
wonderful that I heard you say is that because people have what they say about New York, New Yorkers are mean, but that camaraderie and people always coming together,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's not only something that's unique to New York City, but it's something very
Mm-hmm.
that I found like, when someone trips on the subway or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
people might complain and be like, yo,
Mm-hmm.
you need to get up because I need to get to work. But people
Mm-hmm.
are still willing to come together and help. And
Yeah,
I think you maybe noticed a little bit of that, which is
definitely.
beautiful.
Definitely. I felt like it was I mean, again, everyone's experience is really different. I felt like it was a really profound time, for better or for worse. Like it's one of those times that like we'll never forget and we're not totally out of it. But yeah, I mean, for myself, like, I might go out. I don't know. Sometimes I want to go to the coffee shop, I wasn't supposed to, right? But I was like, I got to get outside. But I would like ride my bike a lot. And I think it was at that 7 o'clock hour, 6 or 7 o'clock hour where everyone would be like, and that was just,
What a nightmare.
yeah, but that was just like that moment where everyone was coming together and like clapping for, I mean, I gotta say though, like the healthcare workers that were going through COVID,
Mm,
I wanted to be like, come to me because y'all need to talk to someone. Like I can't imagine what they were going through,
right.
treating people day after day after day after day.
Well, okay, so I guess that's kind of like leads into what I want to talk next because we're talking about mental health. And now that you even said it that like the conversation has grown and people have talked
Mm-hmm.
about the benefits of mental
Mm-hmm.
health. But what is something or some things like plural that you as a therapist and licensed in New York City and have done this work that isn't known mainstream like the benefits because everyone says oh it will make you I don't know better and it's better for communication and will bring you make you realize things about yourself but what are like the maybe more medical or more esoteric kind of benefits that maybe the mainstream doesn't know or isn't
Mm-hmm.
talked about in the media but like maybe
Yeah.
around therapists that y'all know will
Yeah.
help.
I think that, I mean, there's so many. Big question,
Oh,
right? There's so
okay,
many.
great. That's good.
Yeah. I think, I guess it depends on what age group you're working with, I mean, we could start with children, like 0 to 5, if you're working with very young children and their caregivers doing trauma work, which there's a treatment called child parent psychotherapy, CPP. Like you can really help build an attachment and attunement system and help fine tune that for a caregiver and a child. And that is the most important thing in a person's life is that early childhood development, child attachment system. So that work to me is like you were setting a kid up for success. I also think that I don't think something that people talk about enough is that like having someone that can hold space for you and empathize with you and validate you is really healing, you know? I think that especially what?
No, I love that. That's
Yeah.
why it
Yeah.
warms my heart. That's good.
I mean, especially
It's like good talk.
because, like I don't think as a society we're good at that. We're not. We constantly tell people what to do, unsolicited advice. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm.
get over it, like pull yourself up. Like we don't
Pull yourself
really
out of bootstraps.
yeah, like we don't know how to hold space, how to sit back and just
Mm-hmm.
hold space for someone. And also times it's, we're not like friends and family, they're totally biased. They want you to be okay. They're worried about you in a way, right? So for therapists, holding space I think is so healing, you know. I also think that it is a skill to know how to really communicate your feelings and really allow yourself to be vulnerable and then to articulate that to another person. That is a skill. That is not something that we are all born knowing how to do.
Mm.
And I think that is incredibly powerful, especially in a couple, because if one person is really able to be like, this is what's happening for me, this is the meaning that I'm making, this is how this makes me feel, this is why I feel like this is the source of this, like all that kind of stuff. It is really helpful and really informative. And when you have one person who's kind of able to do that and another person who really doesn't know how they feel, they're just really reactive, that can cause a lot of different issues. You know what I mean? And also, like, I do feel like it is our birthright to experience joy
Ooh, talk
and
that talk. I like this.
I mean, and to heal, right? And when we say heal, like heal is a lifetime thing, right? But we don't have to suffer as much as we do in silence. And lastly, when I was in my 20s, I developed like a really debilitating panic disorder. And this is before I went to grad school. And I remember going to my therapist. This is my first therapist. I'm like 25 or something. And I was like, I can't get on the subway, like whatever. And she would be like, how does this relate to your childhood? And I'm like, that is not helpful, like important and not helpful, right? I needed skills, you know what I mean? And I actually learned how to treat myself. And now I have like, this is before I went to school or whatever. And now I help other people do it. And to be able to turn to your body and know how to treat yourself, know how to like walk yourself down from a panic attack, know exactly what you need in the moment, to me, that is freedom. That is the ultimate freedom, right?
Mm.
Not to be afraid of your feelings, not to be afraid of yourself. And therapy can really help you learn those skills and those tools to be able to manage that.
So I mean, Taras, I gotta let you know we're literally gonna take that, clipping that, putting that right on TikTok because that was
I love my
snaps.
TikTok. I love
Applause to that
TikTok.
because that got me feeling all hey and
Yes.
wonderful. But this is kind of like a real quick offshoot question. Like, how do you know? Let me just ask this question: Are
hmm
you ever done? Ooh, are you ever done with therapy? Like,
That's a great question. I think it depends on the kind of therapy
okay,
that you're trying to do. Like, I think that so there's so many different modalities of therapy. I've been in therapy for a long time. I'm obviously a big fan of therapy, and I think it is important even for maintenance stuff, even if things are actually going pretty well. But I think it depends. Like, I don't think people need to be in couples therapy forever, even though I adore my couples. We don't need to be in therapy forever. Like certain like EMDR therapy or sensory motor that's specifically treating and processing trauma. You don't need that is more of a short-term model. So I think it really depends. And also people can go in and out of therapy, like I think if you're doing trauma therapy, like you might be able to resolve your PTSD and then you don't actually need that kind of therapy anymore.
because I mean the way I think of that because as someone who has asthma,
Mhm.
which is it's a chronic condition, I'll have it
Mhm.
for my life. I take my Advil, I take my preventative, and it's something I work. And it's just so scary to me to think of, you know, having an issue or a mental issue that will be chronic. But I get it's kind of some kind of solace knowing that there are ways to treat it and there are ways to
Mhm.
deal with it. But my question is because you deal with therapy, but do you what's kind of like the difference between like a psychiatrist or like
Yeah.
the mm, practice of psychiatry
Yeah.
versus just
Yeah.
therapy?
Psychiatrists are doctors or MDs and they give out medication. So they can be therapists too, but they traditionally, I mean, don't come at me, any psychiatrists, if I get this wrong, but like they're not traditionally trained. They're not psychotherapists, right? They might do some additional training in that. They might learn a little bit in school, but they pretty much do medication management. So, yeah. So essentially they're the ones giving the SSRIs, they're the ones giving medication for severe mental illness like schizophrenia, other psychotic disorders, and maybe they do therapy if they're trained in that, right? Psychotherapist, which I am, is the majority of folks that are actually doing mental health care in the
Mm,
US,
hmm.
right? So yeah, and then psychologists, it depends. Some psychologists are clinical psychologists, some psychologists do research and do evaluation stuff, which is a little different.
So there's that. It's almost like a yeah, like a triangle or like a trifecta of.
Mhm.
And I mean, what is like the special case that you think should require all three? Like when it comes to like a
Yeah.
person and what they're dealing with.
I think that, I mean, I obviously am a big fan of psychotherapy. I think, talk therapy or even like somatic based therapy, like sensory motor, EMDR, something like that, I think is really important. I'm not against medication for certain people. I think, I used to feel more like that and now I don't actually, because I think it can offer incredible relief to people in certain circumstances. And I feel like there's also been a culture of shame around that. And
Mm,
I would love for us to get to a place of like, you don't need to suffer. Like it's okay. So I think medication can be helpful, but there's also like a whole field of like holistic medicine that I love, like naturopathic medicine, functional medicine, herbal medicine, right? That can, also hormonal health medicine, right? Because I mean, that's a whole other thing, but so many of the issues that we deal with specifically as women can be related to hormones,
mm.
cortisol, our cycle, etc. Um, I would love for the healthcare to be holistic, but unfortunately in this country, everything is a bit siloed. So that's a long-winded answer to
No,
say that
that's
I think it depends on what you're talking about with like anxiety, depression, and PTSD. Like PTSD is 100% treatable. Anxiety and depression, to me, like this idea that people have a chemical imbalance is BS. Okay.
okay.
Because who's actually getting their serotonin or dopamine tested? Have you ever gone to the doctor and had your serotonin or dopamine tested? No.
I'm not even sure what that is, but
Right.
yeah, I
The
did.
chemicals in the brain, right? So it's like big pharma kind of sold this idea a little bit, that like there's a chemical imbalance, but we don't actually know. That's actually not been proven. And actually a lot of our serotonin lies in our gut and our gut health. So I say all that to say that like, you know, we don't actually know exactly how medications work. We know that they do help. But like the idea that there is a chemical imbalance essentially says that it's like a static condition that won't change. And we know that anxiety and depression can change, it can shift. And it's not like you have an internal mental health issue that isn't impacted by the environment. It's actually the opposite. It's completely impacted by your relationships, by your environment, politically, systemically, etc.
Wow, I've never even really thought of that before. Because I mean, I've heard of
Mm-hmm.
that, kind of thing. Like, oh yeah, the chemical imbalance. Like I've heard that but there are some people
Mm-hmm.
like you that definitely do not adhere to that or
Yeah.
have some
I mean,
skepticism toward that.
the thing is that we know that these medications are working on chemicals in the brain. We know that, right? But we don't actually know what people's necessarily baseline is because you're not getting your baseline tested. Like if you're to go to the doctor and, get high blood pressure medication, like what your baseline is, right? We don't have those numbers to actually compare. We know it's working. But again, once you stop taking the medication, then what happens, right? Like so I'm a root cause person, like let's get to the root of it. If the root of this stuff is trauma, then let's work on the trauma and see how things shift.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Let's work on lifestyle stuff. Let's work on your environment. Let's work on your relationships and see how things shift.
Got you. And I think this might because I'm just curious
Mm-hmm.
with how have you seen because we've talked about it specifically within Black mental health and we're kind of talking about within the U.S. But and I don't know if you've been to conventions or international
Mm-hmm.
talks. I don't know which therapists or like what kind of conversations y'all be having. But do you see some differences or big differences like
Mm-hmm.
internationally when it comes to talking about mental health or are there some things that you like to incorporate
Mm-hmm.
from different places, whether and it can be really from anywhere,
Yeah.
India or South Africa, who knows?
Yeah.
Are there any like aspects or things that you find interesting
Mm-hmm.
about how mental health is talked about internationally and
Yeah.
how they go about treating it?
Great question. Big question.
Big, big.
Very
We
big.
do it big.
Global, right?
Yes.
I guess the biggest thing I would say, I mean, I can't really speak to that, because I mean, I haven't even have I been internet? Yeah, I haven't like been to like conferences or anything like that really since COVID.
Gotcha.
Although I've done some like trainings and whatnot. I think that in general, the field could do better at understanding trauma and understanding the nervous system and understanding like holistically, like not everything is trauma and sometimes it is, and I just feel like as therapists, we could do better at understanding root cause and understanding the holistic picture of someone's health.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think there's that. I think that trauma can also be missed. I think domestic violence can be missed at times, especially in couples work.
Hmm.
So,
And this is, you know what? I mean, I'm kind of glad that you said that because I have a little bone to pick with not you, but therapists in general. And there's a great article that I think it came out in the New Yorker or one of those where they've seen an uptick in, and let's just be real, it's mostly men because men aren't, we got some problems. But there's been an uptick in people using, and I think it's called therapy speak,
hmm
um, using like diagnoses or certain terms that you don't really like. For example, narcissist, and I feel like I hear that all the time, damn
hmm
time. Like, oh, she's such a narcissist, he's such a narcissist, and I kind
hmm
of find myself being like, do you actually know what that means? And and people also using therapy speak to because therapy was supposed to be self-reflection and open
hmm
you up and all those great things you said, but now I feel like there's almost this like two-face or like inverse of that where now
hmm
it's used to manipulate people, where now you're saying actually you're crossing a boundary when it's like, with this great conversation about mental health and all of that, how does that make you feel
hmm
as a therapist, like, and have you noticed that
Yeah.
phenomenon, like people kind of using therapy or therapy speak to their
Yeah.
advantage?
I don't have a problem with it. I
Okay.
don't. I think that we as a species need to evolve emotionally. I think that we are becoming more emotionally intelligent. And part of that is understanding and having language to express what we need and how we feel. Okay. So the word boundaries is actually a great word. You know what I mean? Like it's a great word to express this is what I need to be able to be in a relationship. But I got to hear from you. Like what's been your experience of people using the word boundary that you
Okay, yeah.
feel?
So
Yeah.
I just have, okay, and I guess I'm not just talking about that article, but
Yeah.
there has there's just has been a certain movement of thinking that therapy
Mhm.
can cure all societal ills or like within a person. So like
Mm.
I feel like, yeah, and I just got to say men.
Mhm.
And not all
Mhm.
men and
Yeah,
anything
yeah,
like
yeah.
that, but I think therapy has been used as an excuse to still act in unsavory or not great way, but just with a little bit of refinement. So
Mhm.
instead of you, I don't know, cussing somebody out, you just use a bunch of lofty words
Well, what's
and
better?
you,
Is it better to cuss someone out?
I mean, if it warrants, if the situation warrants it, yes.
Okay. Well,
What I mean, why are you
I
asking
mean,
that
I don't
question?
know.
What do you
I don't
mean?
know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree with that.
Because I mean, sometimes I feel like sometimes anger is warranted, and sometimes
100%.
using profanity can be,
But cussing someone out?
yes. Like if they like, for example, someone's did something bad and you need to like let them know that that ain't
Do you need
cool.
to cuss them out to do that?
Sometimes you do.
Okay.
Sometimes, not all the time. And I feel like this can also go into a conversation about civility, right? Because people are always asked to be, a lot of the times, oppressors or bad people or bullies are
Mm-hmm.
always asking people that are victims or yeah,
Mm-hmm.
to be the civil ones. But once they react or,
Yeah.
they start cussing out people,
Yeah.
then of course, then they can turn around and be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you're crossing a boundary. Oh, you're doing
Yeah.
something that is hurting my mental health or whatever, right?
That's not so.
So that's where I'm
But
that's
here's the
where I'm
thing,
at.
before therapy speak, we were still having those dynamics. You know what I mean? So people can use anything that's intended for good and spin it in a way. So in the general overall opinion about this, I think therapy speak and having language for our experience is good. I think like to what you're saying, like if someone is causing harm and then they're using therapy speak to be like, well, it was my childhood trauma that like blah 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 blah.
Thank
Here's the
you.
thing.
Right.
There's
That's
like
what I
there's
mean. Yes.
but like therapy speak does not does not make absolve you from being accountable, right? Like I mean just because you've been hurt does not give you the right to then hurt someone else. You know what I mean? So, but I don't necessarily think of that as therapy speak. I think that yeah, I think some of this language is really helpful. I do think that there's like we diagnose people a lot, with like you're a narcissist, you're this, you're that, without really, or you're like avoidantly attached or this or that, without necessarily knowing what that means, like you had said. But at the same time, I
Right.
think people are trying to understand other people's behavior, specifically other people's hurtful behavior. So I actually think it's more about an accountability issue. You know what I mean? And I think I see this a lot in dating, like, and even with, not necessarily with the couples that I work with, but I think I just see in general in dating where there is a little bit of like a lack of accountability, or we've kind of like lost our way as far as like humanizing other people, and we've normalized some behavior that I think is really hurtful. Um, Getting off topic. But yeah, I also think that people can understand something, but what are you going to do with it? Like, okay, so you're avoidantly attached. So you know that, I know that. What are we going to do about it?
Got you.
Do you
Eh,
want to do anything about it? That's the other thing, right?
Right.
Some people are actually like perfectly happy to, you know, maintain as they are. So I also think like, are you in a partnership? Are you around people who are growth minded? Or are you around people who don't want to go that deep,
Got you.
you know?
And so, and I guess I definitely do not want this to be read as don't utilize therapy because of course, but
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's just in human nature to take whatever it is,
Yeah.
and always use it to your
Yeah.
advantage. And that's it's I just I just remember reading that article and I wish I knew. I think it was in the New Yorker of just,
I think I read
people
it.
using, you know,
Mm-hmm.
basic tactics, right? Um and being able to, use tools that are actually supposed to help and support and build up
Mm-hmm.
you and your mental health, and instead
Mm-hmm.
are inflicting pain and harm. And
Mm-hmm.
the worst part of it is, again, when they get called out, right?
Yeah.
There's that reversal, and they're like, where they play victim, and because they can use
Mm-hmm.
these lofty and these words that are not maybe readily accessible to the common person,
Mm-hmm.
but are read off as genteel and
Mm-hmm.
nice or whatever, right? And the
Yeah.
person that is maybe a little bit uncouth and might just be like, well, you fucking suck.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean, there's that. There's
and I
that.
think, I think that's okay to say, So, and because I get what you mean by like, oh, is it all right? But yeah, sometimes it's just okay to just be like, fuck you, instead of being like, well, actually, I find that you are, violating my boundaries, and
I think
you
it's up
gotta
for
go all to
I
that.
think it's a little up for debate though. Am I gonna say that to you and then I'm gonna like hang out with you later that night? Like probably not.
I mean,
Right? Like are we looking to end
maybe.
a relationship?
Oh,
Or are we looking to like tell someone how we feel? Like, I mean, I think this is such a complex topic. Like how do we express anger, and how do we hold other people's anger? And I think women in particular have not been, it's like there's been like that, the trope of the Black woman, like the angry Black woman and the kind of censoring and keeping yourself small. So anger has not been accepted, you know? Um, so it's complex, but I really think that if there's one thing that I think people need to work on in
Talk
the
to me.
therapy speak world, it's accountability, empathy, and self-awareness, right? If you're working on you and I'm working on me and you can communicate to me what your triggers are and I can tell you what my triggers are and I can hold that and we can hold that for each other, we're going to have a much better relationship. Do you know what I mean? Regardless if we're using therapy speak or not. You know what I'm
She's
saying?
like, do not come from my profession.
I'm just
You know what I'm
saying.
saying?
I'm just saying. And the thing is, like, even if someone's saying, like, he's so narcissistic or he's this or he's that, like, one, who are you telling that to? Are you telling that to the person that hurts you and are they listening to you? And or are you looking for a way to just define that person's behavior, but actually what you're feeling is you're really hurt? So this goes back to like how do we hold space for people?
I love that. I mean, once again, another mic drop moment, but we can't drop these mics because they're
Yeah.
attached to these things. That's fine. Shifting gears,
Shifting.
and you know what? I think I can just piggyback on what you were talking about with colorism, because before this we had a really long like big back and forth talking about colorism and how because I remember you saying this about the conversation about mental health and how that you've seen in mainstream media and how that conversation has increased and that it's been magnified. And that's what I was also saying about colorism, that I think, and just to give a little bit background, growing up in the Midwest, Ghanaian American, uh, colorism wasn't really something that was discussed because most of the people that I hung out with were dark like me, and of course we knew it. I mean, my grandmothers they used to say we're like cafe au lait, like, oh, that person has cafe au lait kind of skin, milk like coffee. Anyway, and it was something that was discussed and known about, but wasn't really brought about. Um, and then now through Twitter and through just in general in social media, I've seen a very uh kind of delayed but necessary conversation about colorism, especially within like rap, where you see certain women that are amplified from what's her name, Ice Spice to Lotto to Cardi B, right? And then there are definitely these dark skinned women that are do not get those same kind of opportunities, and I love seeing that conversation, but I feel like there's kind of like a disconnect sometimes when
Yeah.
those things are talked about. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of give you the floor because I know you had some very poignant things to say about it, and just how you feel colorism or that whole conversation has changed, and being very honest about your light skin privilege, seeing how
Yeah.
that conversation has changed and molded and like
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. So, I mean, colorism, at least in my family, is something that, we've talked about for since I was a kid. Like my mom and I have had really open and honest conversations about colorism. I mean, colorism has been alive and well since the plantation times. I mean, you had the house slaves and you had the field slaves, right? And that was completely determined by skin color. Obviously, we've had the one drop rule during Jim Crow. So if you have any black blood, you're black and whatever. But the colorism is very, very real. And the proximity to blackness, proximity to whiteness is still very much alive and well. So I would say that, like, I think most folks have, because African Americans are also so mixed. Like, we have Native Americans, we have some of us have European ancestry in our bloodline too. I think the experience of colorism within family systems, where it's like the dark skinned kid maybe gets treated a little bit differently than the light skinned kid. I think at times the kind of like we've seen this before, where folks want to kind of lighten the bloodline, which sounds like controversial, and also like the proximity to whiteness has given certain folks like certain advantages because we live in such a I would say a pigmentocracy, in this country, which is not just for the U.S. That's, I think, any place that's had slavery or been colonized, et cetera. I think that it's hard to say in in mass media, because I think that like we're just having this conversation about racism openly, and then the idea of colorism, it's like I think it is talked about, but I think it could be talked about much more. Outside of like, friend groups and family systems, like I don't think we talk about it on a national level in the way that we should or could.
Right. I mean, I think besides rap, another time that I saw colorism kind of talked about was with Meghan Markle, and just everything about that situation and then you even see, and this is why I love this podcast, African Time, talking about the diaspora. I saw very different conversations with my cousins in London talking about Meghan Markle versus how people
Interesting. What did you
talked about it.
notice?
So they were definitely they were kind of like, what did you expect kind of talk when it came with the royal family, because they were like, oh, this is the OG kind of racism, and not
Totally.
saying that Meghan Markle was didn't know about that, but there was that documentary on Netflix, and the way she was raised, she was just kind of there seemed to be a little bit of like almost like color blindness, and given how she looks, and especially in the U.S.
100%.
with that kind of proximity to whiteness and how she looked and with the straight hair and everything like that wasn't really much of a issue. But in the UK, where there's even more demarcations with that, like when it comes to mixed race or being black, and then the royal family being like the originators of that whole thing, and there was just a kind of almost nonchalance with my cousins. Whereas in the U.S., I felt like there was, I mean, she went to Tyler Perry's place to like escape, and then moving to California. So not to say there was any coldness or kind of like apathy, but I feel like in the UK and what I've kind of experienced there is a very subtle knowledge of how things work and how things go, and it's not really talked about. But when Meghan Markle brought that kind of conversation, people are like, well, I mean, that's how it is. Whereas I felt like within the U.S., they were definitely like, that, wow, that's bad, because like, if someone that looks like Meghan Markle is dealing with those kind of issues, like, like the whole prospect of racism and colorism is something that is a lot deeper than we thought. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you kind of pay attention to that whole
I
thing?
wasn't really following it a
Yeah.
lot. I mean, I think I did watch a couple episodes of that. It was interesting hearing her talk about her experience. I mean, I think she was saying, how did she identify as a kid? I don't remember.
I think she was like just
Biracial?
biracial, right?
Yeah.
And of course there are different ways. Hey, like Barack Obama, and of course politics, but he's black, and that's what he says. I'm black, and that's what. But yeah, with her, and just look at the way she looks.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think it's an complex and nuanced conversation about identity for biracial and multiracial folks in the US. I think because so much of racism, it's tricky because so much of racism is about like the interpersonal racism is about how you look and how people perceive you, and that can change depending on where you are in this country, right? And then there's the kind of like systemic, structural, epigenetic, what's gotten passed down through the bloodline type of racial trauma that we see, right? So yeah, it's interesting, but I feel like with her, I don't know, she's also gotten a lot of hate though. Like she's gotten a lot of hate, and I just don't totally understand that either. Like I just think, okay, the thing about social media, like, and this is obviously going to go on social media, people just be hating, like really, and I'm kind of like, you can go to therapy for that a little bit. You know what I mean? Because it's like people are so opinionated about things. We don't have the full story, and I don't know.
Something that I saw, whatever, via social media, Twitter or TikTok, is that a black woman was like, because a lot of vitriol was coming from white women,
Mm-hmm.
and they were basically like they couldn't believe that a woman that looks like her was basically chosen by a prince.
Oh,
Like
really? I didn't
they,
see that side of TikTok.
yeah, and and it was. I think there was some kind of deep seated, animosity, and also just what they've been told their whole life, which is, you are the chosen. You are the epitome of beauty. And when they saw a girl like Meghan Markle, who, hey, yeah, she's mixed, and
Mm-hmm.
one drop rule or whatever, like she's
Mm-hmm.
not white. She is
Yep.
not the epitome of beauty.
Yeah.
How is it that a bona fide prince, whatever the fuck that means, um, chose this
Yeah.
over me and, like the greater we or whatever.
Yeah.
So, that was a kind of very interesting,
I mean,
like just how racism is, those
yes.
different facets.
And
Yeah.
also, why are we in 2023 aspiring to be a princess? Like, I would never want to be a princess. Like, I would never.
But wait,
Ever.
did that ever happen to you as a young girl, like, playing with dolls or having that kind of fantasy?
Never.
Never?
Nope.
Therese.
I never wanted to be a princess. I was like, nope, never.
What'd you want to be?
Actually, when I was 7, I didn't even know where I heard this term. I was like, I want to be a psychotherapist or I want to be a
Stop
dance.
it.
I'm serious. I don't know where I heard that. I don't even think there was a therapist on TV.
Right.
I was like, I want to be a psychotherapist because I want to understand why people do what they do, or I want to be a dancer on Star Search. That was my thing.
well,
But I
there
was
you
too
go.
tall.
Yeah, okay.
Indiana, they were like, you're 5'11", play basketball. Because Indiana. And I'm like, I can't.
Wait, you never played basketball?
They put me on the team. I didn't even know how to do a layup, whatever that thing, what's it called?
Stop it. A layup?
Layup, yeah, I didn't know how to do that. So I tried out for the dance team in like 7th grade, right?
Yes.
And I wasn't very good because whatever. And it was like all these white girls and I was, whatever. And they were like, no, we're not going to pick you, but you should try out for the basketball team. Ooh, my mom, she was fit to be tad. She showed up at that school and she raised hell. And they were, never again would they ever tell a kid to do that.
Oh, but
I
you
still didn't make
get-
the dance. I still didn't make it. But she was like, no one's going to tell my kid what to do, you
Right.
know?
And then you never, okay, yeah. To this day, you still weren't sure what a layup, I mean, you've been to a Knick game? Like,
No,
what's
I don't think I never.
if
I
you-
think I went to a Pacers game, Indiana Pacers, whatever.
Pacers?
I'm just not like a basketball, sorry. I'm just not.
Who is the best player from the Pacers?
Reggie
that you
Miller,
know.
obviously.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Obviously,
I
you
am
know about
from
that.
Indiana.
You don't
Like,
know
we
about
know
the layup,
about-
but you know about
We know Reggie
Miller.
Miller. We know Peyton Manning. He's football. but,
Yes,
like,
there you go.
Like, what's the other guy's name? Larry something?
I'm sorry?
Larry
Huh? Yeah,
his
keep
name?
going.
Duke? No.
Larry Duke.
Bird. Bird. I don't know where I got that.
Larry Duke. Let's move on. We have a game called This or That.
Love it. Let's go.
It's very self-explanatory. It's literally this or that. What's that hip hop song? You can get a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little. You know what's up? Okay. Yeah. Oh.
Oh.
Walter. Shout out to Walter. Okay. Sound engineer,
All right,
Brooklyn
Walter.
podcaster.
All right.
I like that. I don't even know the name, but you know that song.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Of course.
I'm still a little worried about you because you didn't know what to lay up with, and it's okay. I'm a little sad.
Not a basketball. I can play basketball. Watch me. Put me on a court. It's horrible. Anyway, continue.
So yeah, you just literally pick, but more importantly, I need to know why.
Okay.
Whether you pick this or that.
Great.
First up, Afrobeats or Amapiano.
Amapiano.
Why?
Boom. South Africa.
Oh,
Hello.
okay. I mean, that's what I just said. Why? So South Africa. That's
so when
it.
I was in South Africa, Kwaito was
Okay.
still really big. And then
That's a
Amapiano.
music genre.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
like, that predates Amapiano. Amapiano, I think, started in like 2010. So I was there in 2009. So Kwaito was big there,
Mhm.
right? And all types of amazing music. And then Amapiano developed, I think, in 2010. I'm into it. I like Afrobeats too, but I like Amapiano because it's my South Africa.
Were you surprised because I mean, Amapiano now especially has just exploded. I hear it all the time. There are DJ sets where it's just Amapiano, especially in New York.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm speaking. Like, are you surprised by that it just made that? And now even
I'm surprised
Nigerians
it took
like
so
it's
long. Because
okay.
I felt like the
You're like,
music
"Duh,
scene in
should've-"
Cape Town was like, when I was there, and some of the people that I was friends with have like also kind of blown up, but like which is awesome to see. But yeah, the music scene is so dope in South Africa. So like, I'm a little surprised it took this long, but
But you're like, oh,
I'm not
it was,
surprised.
yeah, you're not
I'm not
surprised.
surprised.
Got you. Cape Town or Johannesburg?
So I've only been to Johannesburg, like actually spent time there like one time. So Cape Town.
Oh,
Also,
okay.
like I love the mountains and the beach. So Cape Town's
And that's
perfect.
what Cape Town has,
Yes.
as opposed to Johannesburg,
It's
which
like
is
city.
very
City.
Okay,
Yeah.
got you. All right. Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Really?
Peanut butter chocolate, really.
Mm,
I'm not
with
like a huge
nuts?
sweet. Not really. I'm not a huge sweet person. But if I had to choose, it'd be chocolate and peanut butter chocolate, like dark chocolate peanut butter cups.
Got you. Oh, wait. And then I guess maybe to go in white chocolate or dark chocolate?
Dark,
Dark.
for sure.
Because, yeah, you don't want it to be too sweet.
Yeah.
Okay, got you.
Mm-hmm.
90s R&B or trap music?
You know, I love my Gucci man. Like,
Oh, my God.
you know that.
Yes.
I mean, you cannot get away from the 90s R&B. Like I said, R&B. I'm so excited. I can't even say it. Like,
yes, there you go. Yeah.
the best
R&B,
genre
yes.
of 90s music, the best genre of R&B is 90s R&B.
Oh, don't say that. Don't do that.
Really, though?
Don't do that.
I mean, you got like,
Don't do that. See? Mm-mm.
wait, what do you think is the best genre? I mean, the best, like,
I mean, I
year.
look. There's just a
R&B.
lot of good R&B wherever you look. So yes, you could probably bring like, monster hits from the '90s. But I'll be like, yo, like there's Brent Fayez right now,
Great.
right now. Oh, see,
He's
yeah,
great.
there's what's
Ro James or Roy James?
You know, there's
Permission.
So that's what I'm
Ooh,
saying.
That's my song.
There you go.
Her, next level.
There we go.
Next level.
See, I mean, there's just
Okay, but
it's
you
just
got
too
like
much.
but the whole
Anderson
neo
Paak, I
soul,
mean-
the neo soul movement with Erykah Badu, Jill
Beautiful.
Scott. Then you got 112. You got Drew Hill, Keith Sweat,
Lovely.
Faith Evans,
There
Mary
we go.
J.
Yeah, get into it. See,
I
Walter
remember
right here.
like when I was like 12 or something, I'd be like in my dad's car and I'd like put in the cassette. God, I'm dating myself. I put in the cassette and I would play like Keith Sweat or something like.
You like that?
Nobody,
Keith Sweat? Like,
I love it. My dad would be like, "What is this, Therese?" And I'm like, I'd be like singing along to the lyrics, not knowing what they meant.
Right.
It was a great time.
So yeah, that's so you know what I mean. It's definitely your choice in 90s R&B, but I'm just saying I got love because I know when I'm actually get old is when I'm start doing the these kids nowadays they're not making good music, and I'm like, stop with that. So
You know, I'm gonna stand by that.
yeah,
I'm gonna stand by 90s R&B.
90s R&B
That's it.
better than your Gucci Mane. Okay,
If I had to choose, I think I would,
mountain or beach?
beach. I do like a forest because I'm a Taurus, like so. I like to be like rainforest.
Taurus, is
yeah.
that what you said? Oh, that's
Well, I'm a Taurus,
okay.
Pisces, Virgo combination. Taurus sun, Pisces moon, Virgo rising. So the Pisces is like the emotional, like the inner world. So like I
Yes.
love a beach, I love to swim, but I also love the rainforest. Rainforest is where it's at. You got like water and trees and flowers. It's
So
nice.
wait, you're a Taurus. Wait, when are you in April or May?
April 20th.
Oh, okay, you ain't cool like me then. Yeah, because I'm the May Taurus, and May Taurus is where it's at. You know.
Okay, well, I was supposed to be born in May. I was a
Oh,
couple weeks early,
there you
so
go.
sorry.
And, right, and someone just real quick, my sister kind of really got me into just astrology because she
Mhm.
was like, hey, it's a good way to interpret some things in your life.
Yeah. Love
It's
it.
not like because I hate those people that are like, you're a Virgo, can't date you or whatever, like
Totally.
the compatibility. I'm like,
Yeah,
it's not that deep, but
yeah,
you can just use it to kind of make sense of some things.
totally.
You know?
We're always trying to understand human behavior,
That's that therapy speak. That's the therapy speak I like.
Listen, I can do the therapy speak though because I'm a
Yeah,
therapist.
that's you. That's your role.
When people tell me I can't, like, oh, you're doing the therapy speak again, I'm sorry. I'm a therapist.
This is
what do
what
you
I
want me
do.
to say?
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, if I'm a basketball player, I'm gonna be saying layup and alley oop and all that
That's
stuff.
what I'm saying.
You're right. Wine or German beer?
Wine, red wine to be exact.
You're going against your father's going to listen to this.
And he's
You're going
amazing here.
against your own Deutschland.
The Deutsches are fine. They're fine.
Oh,
German beer is great, but German beer is great. I love like going to Germany and like biking in
See,
the
yeah,
forest, and
you
then
see
like
how you
going
try
to
to,
like like a beer garden, having some
huh?
like proper German beer.
You think you
But
slick.
I
I
like
already
wine.
know. Now, what type of wine, though? What's your,
Red wine from like Loire Valley, France.
so what
It's
is
my
that,
fave.
Pinot Noir or
It's like
what?
Cabernet Franc,
Got you.
Chinon,
There you
stuff like
go.
that. Like a little bit lighter, but just like
My favorite is Malbec. Love
a
Malbec.
little too heavy for me, but I get it.
Argentina. Yeah,
Yeah.
right? A little heavy? Okay, that's fine. Staycation or travel?
Travel, of course. I love to travel. Why am I gonna stay at home? I work from home like most of the time. So I'm like, I love my cat, but like, and I like my little apartment, but no, travel. You got to see the world.
3 top destinations.
God, I wasn't expecting that. Let me think.
Hmm.
That I haven't been to yet.
Both. 3 top destinations that you have been to, and then 3
Okay,
top
I got
places
it.
you want to be.
I can't do that.
Was
The
that
place that I
that's
want
too
to go.
much?
That's too much for me.
Oh, okay, fine. So
That's too much.
3 top
Okay, I
places
want
you
to
want
go
to
to
go. Yeah.
Vietnam because I've
Oh,
just seen videos and like the landscape looks amazing. I want to go to Indonesia. And I want to go, I don't know, I have an image in my mind. I want to go through like an idyllic forest that I haven't been to in like Northern Europe. Like to go
like
biking. Kind of
Norway or
like
something.
maybe
Because I'm
similar to
thinking
kind of
North or Finland or something, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I one of my favorite things to do in the Netherlands is to go like biking through the forest. I have a friend that lives outside of Amsterdam.
Okay.
Love it.
So you,
I need to have that in my life
so that
regularly.
mountain, aka that,
It's
it
really a
seems like you're
combo.
speaking mountain.
It's a combo,
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah. But
what
that's
what
oh,
beaches are killing it out in fucking Finland
you're
or
right.
you know what I
You're
mean? Like,
right. You're right. Okay, actually, but if we're talking about mountain and beach, how about Dominica? Mm,
right.
that's where I wanted to go for my birthday. I didn't go there. I went to Grenada, which was amazing.
Okay.
You got like a volcanic island, so you can do the mountain stuff, but then you got the beach.
Right. And those are actually legit. Okay.
And
All
you
right.
can like,
That's
in Grenada, it's like you can go up the mountain and do that, which is amazing. And then you can just go drive down and go to the beach.
Dominica. Is that kind of off of South? No, that's in the Caribbean.
Yes,
Am I
in
bugging?
Caribbean,
You're
yeah.
right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Got you. Not to be mistaken with the Dominican Republic. Got you.
Yes.
See, I know some things. Miami or Los Angeles?
Miami. Not a huge fan of the politics, obviously in Florida, but Miami is just like, it's like a second home. It's like I'm a different person in Miami. I'm same, but
Or
just like,
what are
it's
you?
like humid. My hair is just out and I'm just like, like it's hot, sticky,
You were
and
what
just
again?
like,
What was that? You're like what?
I'm
You
just
do
like,
that.
I'm just
Hit him
like
with that
living
though.
my
You said
best life.
there it is.
It's like I'm biking to the beach, going for a swim.
Yes.
I love it. I love the accessibility. I love the ocean. I love the biking.
So okay,
I
so
like
like
Los Angeles too. I've been a couple times. I have some, friends out there. But Miami is
that calls to you.
just calls to me, yeah.
So you know what? I mean, this is not on the list, but then
Yeah.
hot or cold for this
Hot.
or that. Hot.
Cold I can't.
Hot.
Yeah. Cold and like not cute. Like maybe for a vacation type of thing, but not
Like northern
right.
Europe in the
Like
forest.
maybe a vacation, but who wants to be cold? I don't.
I don't know. I think
At
there
least
might
when
be
you're
a few
hot, you
people.
can maybe go in the shade,
Hey.
you know?
Yeah. That's how it is.
Just go in the ocean,
Yeah.
like whatever.
TV show or movie?
TV 5,000%.
Oh my God. Why? What is that? Why?
I don't know if my attention span is a little different, like everyone, because we're on Zoom and TikTok and all this stuff. But TV shows, I like how they're shorter, the episodes. Unless here's the other thing, unless I'm going to a movie and I'm at like the Alamo where I'm gonna have like food and like, like a drink or something like that, like I'm gonna have an experience. I'm not gonna watch a movie at home. Like TV, like I can see the development of the characters, I can get into it.
I got you.
I'm into it.
Okay, so what's some TV you watching right now?
I'm watching this Argentinian show called Thursday's Widows. I just started watching it last night.
Thursdays.
I watch,
Widows.
I think that's what it's called. I
Where's
watch
that
a
on?
lot.
Is that Netflix?
Yeah,
or-
Netflix. I watch
Okay.
a lot of like Spanish dramas. Just
¿Por qué?
into it.
Dime, ¿por
I
qué?
don't know. They're just like the development is just great. I just love it.
Okay,
Like
all
the
right.
character development is just great, and I love like I love like the scenic, and this is it's beautiful.
Give me another then TV show.
There's this show called The Marked Heart.
The Marked
Highly
Heart.
recommend. I think it takes
So are
place
these
in
like
Colombia.
telenovelas, basically?
I wouldn't quite say maybe they're like Netflix version of telenovelas.
Okay,
They're not
bet.
like soap
Okay.
opera-y,
Yeah, okay, got you.
but there was a show called The Marked Heart, just loved. I think it took place in Colombia. Also, I love an Apple TV. Give me like 10 shows to choose from. I don't have to scroll like
Oh, like Ted Lasso or something?
not Ted Lasso.
Shrinking?
Good show.
Right?
Good show.
Little therapy, right? That has to do.
Yes.
Okay, there you go.
Love that.
Yeah?
Echo 8. I like pretty much everything on that show, everything on that channel.
Yeah.
Morning show,
Hijack?
obviously.
I mean,
That was
'cause
like,
once again,
yes.
alley oop. Because this leads to the next question:
Yep.
Michael B. Jordan or Idris Elba?
Of course.
Of course.
Have you seen Hijack?
I haven't actually.
What?
So okay, wait. First of all,
Yeah.
you're telling me that Hijack is good.
Very good.
It's very
Because
good.
Idris Elba is amazing. The writing is awesome, but he's just carries that show, you know?
So right, just roll me because I did a thing actually earlier about Idris Elba. I love
Yeah.
Idris Elba. He's one of us. He's half Ghanaian.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm Ghanaian, so it's all love.
Yeah.
However, some of his choices, and by the way, that could
Like
be
what?
because of he's black man and not getting most choices in Hollywood, whatever. But some of his choices are maybe a little questionable.
Like what?
Okay, for example, name me a Idris Elba movie. Oh, you're not really into movies to begin with,
Yeah,
right?
I don't know.
But I guess that's what I'm saying. So his movie, okay, there's some movie like The Dark Tower. You ever heard of that one?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And he's playing like a gunslinger with opposite Matthew McConaughey. Yeah, really didn't do much.
So we're judging him for the characters he chooses to play?
Huh?
We're judging him for the movies he chooses to play and the characters?
Of course, because that's his profession. Like
But
some
what are
of
you
his
upset
choices-
about?
that I wish his talents, because he's so good and he always elevates whatever material.
Yes.
And you even said about the writing, right? The writing, but Idris Elba.
No, he elevates it.
But that's what I'm saying. I feel like the writing doesn't always support that or give him his potential. Okay, so besides Hijack, give me another Idris Elba thing.
Isn't
Even
he,
TV show. Go ahead.
You're really just gonna put me on the spot right now.
Of course, because
I don't know. Okay, here's the thing. I am one of those people that I don't know movies or people, whatever, but I gotta say, when I saw Idris Elba was in this one Netflix show that was super cute. Was he in what other big show was he in?
He was in The Wire.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Right.
I have not watched it. I think you told me to watch it years ago. I haven't.
You
Sorry.
still haven't.
I haven't, sorry.
And that's
I'm busy.
Idris Elba is, beautiful either, but Stringer Bell, that's that Idris Elba where you might be doing this a couple of times, you know what I mean? But I guess what I'm saying is even now he's still being, because whenever he comes to a talk show or something like that, they will be like, him from The Wire. And here's the thing with other celebrities, like for example, George Clooney. Ain't no one ever saying, hey, George Clooney from ER.
Yeah, because that was so long ago.
That was so long ago. And that's what I'm saying. There hasn't been that other Idris Elba project that has, put him in the stratosphere. And he is so deserving of that.
Yeah. So are you mad at him or are you mad at the system? Because there's a lot of pressure on him.
That you're absolutely right. And
too much pressure.
Look at you. Why are you
I'm just
look at you coming for your man? Like you're like, don't talk about.
No, I'm just saying, I don't know. I feel like, yeah, I hear you with that, but also,
And that's why I made sure to put that disclaimer, like, hey, him as a black man not maybe getting those kind of opportunities.
Yeah, he's not getting
So
Leonardo DiCaprio opportunities.
Right. And so I'm definitely lamenting that, but I just wish that, because I think he is on par with Will Smith, Denzel.
Oh, better. I think he's better. Sorry. I think he's better than a Will Smith. Not Denzel. No? Okay. I can't really talk because I don't watch a lot of movies. I watch Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I love that show, but
Right. But that's but that's what I'm saying. Ain't no one saying, oh, you know him from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Like no one is saying that because Will Smith has put himself into that strategy.
I would say that.
Therese.
Independence Day?
Okay, yeah. There's Independence Day. There's Men in Black. There's iRobot. You said whatever. You see,
Fresh
It's because of
Prince
the
was
it's because
like,
of the slap, isn't it? It's because of the slap. You feel some type of way, huh? How you okay?
no comment. Yes.
But I'm just saying.
I'm more into like the Red Table Talk, Jada Pinkett. Like I like what she's doing with her little show.
So you didn't like the fact that he stood up for his woman and defended her after
It's the
Chris
same
Rock
as,
made a
but listen, you also
tasteless
think it's
joke
okay to say fuck you because someone upset you. So like we might just have to have a difference of opinion here.
to rest.
I
All
don't
right,
condone
so
violence, period. Use your words. You know what
okay,
I'm
yeah, and yeah, fuck you is definitely words, right?
saying?
And
Okay.
you can let
It depends
someone
on
know.
what kind of relationship. If you are trying to like if you're trying to have that person come over tonight, she ain't gonna come over after you say fuck you. If you try to end something, you know what I'm saying? But like, we got to think about that.
Right. I mean, and right, and I'm not just talking relation. I just mean, it's New York City. Someone does some bullshit. You know what I mean? Just like, and then just walk
Honestly,
off. Instead of, hey, hello, sir, that was a very mean thing that you did, and I felt that you injured. Nah, you can cut all that out and just be
yeah,
like,
and
you ain't
also
shit.
that can be kind of a little bit in the realm of a little bit of toxic masculinity. You know what I'm saying?
Hey,
I'm just saying.
hey, 1,000%, and you're right,
Like,
and
it's like
that's
we need to find other ways to handle our emotions outside of just like, fuck you, you know? I mean,
gotcha.
sometimes it gets the job done, but like, does it really get you to be understood? You know? Outside of the person who steps on your shoe, I'm talking about like in a relationship. Like,
Yes, of course. Yes,
you know?
I'm right. I'm right there with you 1,000%.
Back to Idris though.
But
So
yeah,
like in the show, he's so freaking good that I had so much respect for him after watching that show. Cause like I knew people like loved, fangirled him, like loved him, whatever. And I watched that show and I was like, he's very talented.
and I've always known this, and I guess that's why I was. Did you ever see him? Did you watch The Office?
No.
Oh, okay. See, Walt. That's what I'm talking about. He was fantastic. He was like
He
a
was in the
kind of a,
office?
yes. He
Like
was
as a
like
regular?
he was like a guest star for like 8 episodes exactly, but he
Yeah.
was like kind of like a straight man, and in the comedic parlance. I mean, of because there's one, it's a meme, but he was like, I'm aware of the effect that I have on women, but he said it in such a like deadpan,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh shit, Idris Elba is also funny, and that's why
Mm.
I wish I could see him in those kind of offbeat, kind of comedic, because he would steal every scene, and I bet you he could just get a Academy
Maybe you
Award
need to
like
like
that.
put a little plug, like Idris, like show us your comedy side.
I'm just saying, like, I just, because I know he wants to be the leading man, but a fair amount of time. Did you watch his, speaking of South Africa, did you watch him in
Probably
Play
not.
Mandela?
No.
Johnny, you know
I'm
what?
just not the person you can talk about this movies with. I'm just not.
That's
Like,
fair. But again, you didn't even really know about it. And it's
No.
about Mandela, one of the greatest, I mean,
Yeah, I know he is.
But very good. But even in that situation, you're like, this should have gotten all of the praise, all
Yeah.
of the attention. And again, he elevated the material, but the writing did not serve him.
Mm.
You know?
Mm.
Or he was in this really great one called Beasts of No Nation on Netflix.
Oh, I've heard of that.
You've heard, right. But again, it just didn't get that, that shine. And then his other TV shows, he was in this other Netflix one called Turn Up Charlie or something. He played a DJ or
Oh,
some
that was
shit.
cute.
That was cute. Yeah, sure. It was cute. But
Mhm.
again, it utilizes his charm and his
Mhm.
grace, but it just didn't pop off. So
Maybe he had to
anyway,
get paid that day.
I'm just,
You know? Variety. Maybe he was like, I'm sick of doing these heavy roles. I want to play. I want to have
Sure.
fun.
What you got going for you in the future? You also let people know like where to follow you. What's going on?
So
Yes.
I'm going to continue my practice.
Mhm.
And I'm hoping to do more on-camera content. So I did a course for alchemy like 2 years ago. So you can always go, alchemy is like a Black mental health app. So I did a whole course on, it's called Finding Freedom, all about like working with anxiety. And I have some like of my like sensory motor meditation stuff that I do in my practice in there.
In basketball parlance, we would call that an alley-oop. Like
Great.
where, I literally serve that and then you just dunk it.
Great.
That's
Yeah,
fun.
that. Yeah. So there's that. I'm hoping to do more on-camera stuff because I really, really enjoy that. I would also love to do some more like consulting work. There's also so much going on in television right now with mental health and how people are portrayed on TV. And which I think is a really interesting area to kind of be involved in consulting for that. I also want to do my own podcast. And if Naila is hearing this, she's one of my good friends who is also worked with Heal House, and she's also a couples therapist. So would love to do that in the works, and also working on revamping my website and putting all my stuff together. So for now, you can find me you can just Google me, and I'm on Psychology Today. And also you can find me on Instagram at tkatarina.
You know what? You might have to. You know what? Actually,
Put that in the show
yeah.
notes.
Okay, that's true.
Yeah.
T Katarina, KATEH.
Nope.
See,
That's what I'm telling you.
I was just. You see, this is
That's what
why
I'm
you got to
saying.
spell it out, because other people might say a different way. Go ahead.
T Katarina, TKATHARINA. I'm also on TikTok. I gotta say,
You are.
I'm
bruh.
into TikTok.
You're a TikToker.
Like the side of TikTok. Like I love like the naturopath side of TikTok. I love the political critical analysis side of TikTok when it comes to like gender and race.
Talk about it. I like it.
But so I'm therapy with TK, but honestly, it's a little bit more of like a personal, and sometimes I do therapy stuff in there.
So it's at Therapy with TK.
At Therapy with TK, yes.
Okay, got you. Therese, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for sharing your gems with literally everything. I learned so much today. Things that I didn't know, things that are shocking, things that are horrific. But you also have this way of just, and yeah, you know what? That's why you are probably, great at your job of, letting people see that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Thank you.
And I really respect you for everything. Despite some of your opinions about some stars and basketball, but whatever. I can
let it go.
I can let it go. That's
accept the whole of each other, right?
All right.
Like,
hold a sec. But thank you for being here, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, peace.